The following video is one in a series on spiritual resilience training, a non-religious view of personal values and their dynamics with others. The contents reflect a variety of principles and practices of systems theory and relational counseling for team building and family resilience. Although the series is intended to support Army Corps values, each video also encourages the viewer to reflect on their current prominent values in specific situations and to consider what values may be more appropriate to means and results that are honorable and helpful with others. Chaplain Dillard initiates creating and posting these videos. Their contents and YouTube's linked videos do not necessarily reflect specific beliefs, practices, requirements, or endorsements of the Department of Defense, its subordinate organizations, or other groups with which Chaplain Dillard is affiliated.
Welcome back. We are wrapping up the series on DiSC personality styles. If you haven't seen at least the first one, I would encourage you to watch that. That kind of talks about what DiSC is, the two axes, the XY axes that help define DiSC personality styles, what that means, what the applications are in work and home and leisure and so forth, some generalities on which everything else is built. Then you'll probably look up the one you think is probably your style if you haven't taken the inventory. But this is a question that I'm often asked, and that is, how do the DiSC personality styles relate to each other? Which ones get along best, which ones don't? And that really depends. So let's take a look at that question. When a person's first and second function are on the same side, they tend to struggle. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you've watched the first video, you remember that there's a box and there's that XY axis, and there are the four different personality styles. On the top is a extroverted style. On the bottom is introverted. On one side is task orientation. On the other side of the box is people orientation. If your primary and your dominant are on the same side, any side of that box, you're going to struggle, because the function that you prefer the most, your primary and your secondary, are both either extroverted, or they're both introverted, or they're both people-oriented, or they're both task-oriented. If you don't have a mix in your first and second preference, then it's probably more difficult for you to empathize with somebody from another perspective. If both of them are extroverted, you're high energy in both. It's very easy for you to miss out on details. If you're task-oriented on both, it's very easy for you to miss out on how your waves, that's a reference to the first opening video, the introductory video, how your waves are impacting others. If they're both low energy, you may feel like others are always pushing you, that they're missing the details and they're not focused enough on what you're telling them, that they don't listen well. If you're just focused on people, then you're probably missing a lot of the tasks that the people need to do. So, and that's common for us to have a primary and a secondary on one side. If you think about it, there's only 6 possibilities. There's the 4 sides, and there's a diagonal and a diagonal mix. So in terms of primary and secondary positions, there's only 6 possibilities. I mean, DI and ID are kind of the same thing. It's just one is preferred over the other. So when any person's functions are extreme, they will tend to struggle in that area. If you look back at some of the previous videos, you know that my C is very high and my I is very low. So it's very important to me that we get things right, that we do things the right way. It's not as important to me to inspire people, because I think, well, people should just want to do the right thing. People should take care of each other. People should be responsible. They don't need me to cheerlead them to do it. Now, that's how I think. That doesn't mean that people don't need encouragement. That doesn't mean that people don't need somebody to come alongside and to help them, and that motivation is very important in relationships. But from my natural bent, that's not something that I need or feel a need for, and therefore, naturally, I don't go out and do that for others. I have to remember to make myself to go out and inspire people when I see that person looks down, that they need some motivation or some encouragement or some help. It doesn't come naturally to me. So if I'm naturally high in one area, I'm extremely high or I'm extremely low, I'm going to struggle in both of those. I'll overemphasize the place that that I want a lot, the function I want a lot, and I'll underemphasize the one that I don't want as much because I'll expect that others see things from the same perspective, and they don't. So, is each person's preference in the function of DiSC balanced or extreme? Now, whether you've taken the DiSC inventory or not, whether the person with whom you have a relationship has taken DiSC personality or not, and it could be your spouse, could be your kids, could be your coworker, a neighbor, anybody, you can pretty easily discern if somebody is balanced, meaning in all four areas of the personality, they're fairly even. They're not way different. Okay, it's not sign language. It's me trying to express extremes. You get it? Never mind. If they're balanced, then they're able to move from empathizing with the importance of task to people. They're able to be high energy in some things and low energy in some things. They're able to receive those differences from you. If they really get stuck in one gear, so to speak, or in one function or two, and they neglect other things or they want to avoid other things, then they're extreme. They're extremely high, extremely low in something. If you're balanced and they're extreme, you're going to have a little difficulty. If they're balanced and you're extreme, you're going to have some difficulty. What does that mean? It means that we have to work on the relationship. We have to work on ourselves. We have to work on the relationship. We don't necessarily have to work on them. If we make them our project, that's going to be counterproductive to trust and respect and real teamwork, because we will send an implicit message that we're better than they are and they need to be more like us. It's better that we work on ourselves and that we work on the relationship, and hopefully by example, they will begin to work on themselves and also the relationship. Here's another question. Are the individuals in other significant relationships with balanced or extreme types? What I mean by that is this. Maybe you're trying to work on your work relationship and you're doing all that you can, but is the person, your coworker, is their spouse extreme or is their spouse balanced? Do they have another coworker who is extreme or balanced? Because even though you're working on your relationship with them, they have other influences in their life. Or maybe you're working on your marriage. Who is your spouse spending time with during the day? Are your kids balanced or extreme? Are their kids balanced or extreme? Well, if you're married, they're your kids too, right? Well, most kids are extreme in something. They're deficit in one thing and overemphasizing something else because they're still in the process of growing. The point is to realize that we don't have a relationship in a void, that there are other people who impact us who may be balanced in the four functions, or they may be extreme or deficit in some. Same is true with them. So we need to cut each other a little bit of slack and to realize that they have other impacts in their life as well, other influences, and maybe we can be helpful to them in some of those, provide some perspective or show some patience or show some support and encouragement, because there really is multiple relationships in impacting every relationship. How closely are they connected by time together or dependence on each other? Now, when I say they, the other person with whom you're trying to build a relationship, do you work in space very closely with each other? Is this your spouse that you live with and sleep in the same bed? Is this a friend that you see once a week? How closely you work with the other person or spend with the other person, how much time you see them, how much you're dependent on each other is going to tell you the importance of whether they're extreme or whether they're balanced. If we don't spend a whole lot of time with them, if we see them once a week and we have to have a meeting with them, it may be irritating and confusing that their personality is very different from ours. But how much time should we really pour into it if we're just sitting in a room with them for an hour once a week? Probably not a whole lot of time, because there's not it's not going to be a lot that comes out of it, because it's a minimal investment or a minimal return on the other end. On the other hand, if this is one of your children or your spouse or somebody you share an office with or you live right beside each other in the neighborhood, we might need to pour a lot of time into that if our personalities are very different, because we impact each other moment by moment throughout the day. And lastly, what other non-DiSC factors are impacting each other or both? DiSC is not everything. Myers-Briggs is not everything. Kiersey-Bates, Taylor, Johnson, temperament analysis, and other personality type inventories. Personality is not everything. Personality is about preference. We prefer it a certain way, and therefore we tend to pour time and energy and resources, and that way that we prefer gets stronger, often to the deficit of other areas. But there are many other factors than just personality. Is somebody going through a financial crisis? Are they about to go on vacation? Are they sick? Did they just reconnect with an old friend from college and now they're really hyped this week? Did they just inherit some money? Did they just turn 50? Or did they just get a gift from their spouse? All kinds of different things can impact a person day by day, and sometimes for a long period of time. Did their grandmother just die? Did they just get engaged? Those can have long-term impacts of sadness or joy. So there's more than just us involved. So when we're asking the question, how do our DiSC personality types influence each other? It's a good question, and we should work to make the best of that relationship. Just remember that personality is not everything. It's one aspect of who we are in our relationships. To work on ourselves, to work on the relationship, and maybe by modeling that, they may work on themselves in the relationship. Hope that's helpful to you. Tune in next time. We'll look at an entirely different series, and I hope to see you then.
At the release date of this video, I am stationed with Research Development and Engineering Command, RDECOM, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Because the majority of our personnel are in this area, I spend most of my time here. I do, however, travel to our distant units based on command priorities and budget. I place these videos on YouTube for broad visibility to Army personnel and their families, but I hope the videos will be helpful to others too. If you are assigned to RDECOM and want to request specific topics by video, training on site or by VTC, or confidential counseling on site or by secure webcam, you can contact me at jeffrey.d.dillard.mil@mail.mil.